I now call on the Minister for Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport, the Honourable Faiyaz Koya. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Sir, Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of Opposition Members of Parliament, fellow Fijians, thank you for allowing me to take the floor to deliver my statement in support of the 2021-2022 national budget. Mr. Speaker, Sir, right at the outset, even in such difficult times, the Honourable Attorney General and Minister for Economy has actually delivered an excellent budget. This is a budget that actually is focused on recovery. It's focused on reclaiming and rebuilding stronger and better. And there is something for every Fijian in the budget, whether you're in the formal or informal sector, micro, small, medium or large business, transport, student, market vendor, elder, or person with disability. This budget has actually got you covered. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have continued to deliver for Fijians because of the strong leadership of the Honourable Prime Minister. His leadership and guidance has kept the country afloat despite the adversity caused by natural disasters and the COVID-19 pandemic. And this budget, Mr. Speaker, sir, yet again carries on the vision that no Fijian is left behind. Mr. Speaker, sir, now more than ever, the nation needs the House to unite and support the budget. Why? Because it gives us hope and continued direction. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, sir, the other side of the House opposes and condemns the budget and spreads lies. All except for our Honourable Bulitavu, who I want to commend, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, opposition response from Honourable Bulinaouda and others clearly show they have nothing to critique. The opposition have been caught off guard with an excellent budget. That's why the digression to unrelated issues. Honourable Bulinaouda claims that Bill Gates is behind COVID. What preposterous ideas, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the revenue projection in the budget is conservative rather than optimistic, which Honourable Lalambalavu claimed. For example, the current fiscal year, revenue collections were 26% higher than forecast, an over-collection of $438 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say thank you to Honourable Bulitavu, as I mentioned earlier, for understanding the vision of the Fijian government and supporting the budget. Honourable Bulitavu, you have shown the leadership that Fijians look for from the opposition. This is definitely missing from the leader of opposition and other members. Mr. Speaker, sir, the leader of opposition claims that economic growth during the Rambuka and the SDL governments was higher. During the 2 decades prior to 2007, the average growth rate was 2.2%, compared to 2.6% in the decade from 2007 to 2016, an average growth of 3.7% for the past 9 years, 2010 to 2018 or so, despite the global financial crisis, series of natural disasters and Category 5 cyclones, and the COVID-19 pandemic that led to global shutdown. This is a feat never achieved by any government. The previous governments did not face any of these global phenomena. So it's simply, Mr. Speaker, incomparable. What the opposition also fails to tell the public is the economic base in the period prior to 2007 relied on sugar and tourism. Today, we have a diversified economic base, which includes manufacturing. It includes food, it includes building materials, it includes services, ICT, BPO, non-sugar agriculture, to name a few. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we diversify into new economic sectors, the contribution of traditional sectors will reduce. But that does not mean there is no growth in that sector. Growth in agriculture and agriculture's share of GDP are two different things. Falling share of the GDP does not mean there is a decline in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, sir, the leader of opposition further claimed that the Honourable Minister for Economy wants to control the budget by placing allocations under Head 50. Firstly, sir, legally, the permanent secretaries are responsible for these appropriations. Secondly, out of the $713 million in Head 50, $200 million is for unemployment payment. Over $50 million is assistance such as electricity subsidies and other relief. over $165 million is for TELS and NDS, and $40 million for the Fiji Airways rebate. Insofar as the Moody's rating is concerned, sir, the Honourable Leader of Opposition spoke of the downgrading of Fiji's long-term issues and senior unsecured ratings to B1 from BA3 and maintained a negative outlook. Again, they failed to identify the rationale. Mr. Speaker, sir, and I quote Moody's statement on the rationale: ongoing border restrictions limiting the arrival of international tourists to Fiji will weigh on GDP and tax revenue, of which the tourism sector's direct contribution is approximately 20% and 30%, respectively. With a return of tourism activity at an uncertain date and likely staged over a period of time, Moody's expects Fiji to carry a much higher government debt burden than before the pandemic for the foreseeable future. Please, Honourable Leader of Opposition, do not quote and use on information that you do not understand. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a government, we have kept the interest of all Fijians. We have not changed or swayed our direction based on what certain people on social media say. It has been these decisive actions that has actually lifted our nation out of the dark ages of racial divide and favoritism based on political allegiance or who you know. Mr. Speaker, sir, my message to all Fijians listening today: serving a nation is not always about political point scoring. It is actually about securing a future for generations to come. Your government, Fiji First government, has done that and will continue doing that. We actually have listened to you, whether you are a young scholar or an entrepreneur in the making or amongst the most vulnerable. Contrary to what the opposition may believe, we've gone about and listened to everybody. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have progressively and safely opened up businesses, including retail, because this isn't the time to shut more businesses down. In doing that, we're putting thousands of Fijians out of work, costing families years of hard-earned income. Is that what Honorable Charlie wants? However, sir, this is not a decision that the government has taken at the spur of the moment. There was proper planning and detailed consultations with the business community and the Ministry of Health. I re-emphasize that health and safety has been our priority. That is why the approvals for any permit is given jointly by the Ministry and the Ministry of Health. We have strict COVID-safe protocols and monitoring mechanisms in partnership with the Ministry of Health. There will always be risks, Mr. Speaker, sir, but we have minimized these risks. What matters most is how we follow and how we adhere to the protocols of operations set by the Ministry. And that's the most important critical component of everything: how we follow and how we adhere. As a populace, we must adhere. We have established COVID-safe ambassadors to monitor compliance by businesses to the protocols. Mr. Speaker, sir, in summary, the 2021-22 national budget is designed to empower Fijians and businesses. So there is some normalcy and we're able to enhance and create some economic activities, whether unemployment benefits, fees and fines, or providing comfort to focus on getting businesses off the ground or not having to worry about loan repayments for at least 2 years. We are here, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, $200 million for unemployment support, over $50 million in other reliefs like free electricity, like food distribution, etc. Over $120 million in social welfare, free education, and support to tertiary students. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is support for businesses, which includes $200 million worth of financing support for businesses, guaranteeing loans between 80 to 90% for MSMEs, and paying interest for 2 years will free up their minds to think bigger and better. I wish the opposition would free up its mind. $1.2 million for monthly and upfront costs to get MSMEs onto VT card platform. The ministry, RBF, and Vodafone, our very own company Vodafone, will have as many MSEs, especially those licensed under the Fijian Made by Fijian campaign. Mr. Speaker, sir, when I stood before this august House last budget, I shared the struggles of our tourism industry as they fought for survival. I shared new pathways for international travel, re-establishing confidence, protecting businesses and jobs, and ensuring that the benefits of revival are felt beyond the industry itself. With the global crisis far from over and survival still at the top of the mind, we now find hope with vaccines, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have seen the pandemic's uneven impact on global economies and its people. Despite living through the same pandemic with almost the same restrictions, our recovery remains uneven. Close to $4 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses have been administered globally. But for many, vaccine remains out of reach. Despite efforts to enhance access, there are still whole swathe of countries who may not achieve substantial levels of vaccination at least until 2023. While this essentially means these countries will remain isolated owing to lack of visitor confidence, we cannot have that for the Fijian tourism industry, and we most certainly cannot afford it. Mr. Speaker, sir, the good news, the great news is that we have enough vaccines for our entire eligible population. If we fail to vaccinate 80% of the target population by November 2021, we will be amongst those shut to the world. The Fijian tourism industry has been one of our greatest supporters, from offering accommodation for quarantine, to vehicles and to personnel to reach out to communities as part of our vaccine drive. And we are grateful and we are thankful to them for doing so, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, that's why through this budget, we are delivering initiatives that are absolutely critical for the revival of the industry, initiatives that will help us restart. The budget is contrary to what the Honorable Naingama claims. The strategies are built on the pillars of survival and long-term continuity, utility subsidies, regulatory relief, maintaining tax reductions, waiver of arrears, unemployment benefits, loans to meet operational costs. Looking long-term is what will build resilience and ensure that our recovery is sustainable. As we did with the Fijian COVID Safe Economic Recovery Framework, sir, we have mapped out a three-tiered approach to safely reopening the tourism industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, with vaccine passports and tourist insurance schemes, we have now put ourselves on par with our markets. The $40 million Fiji Recovery Rebate Package and travel stipend will serve its purpose. Mr. Speaker, sir, with pent-up demand and only a handful of destinations accepting tourists, competition will be stronger than ever. Our best hope for tourism resumption, or any resumption, really is vaccines. The longer we take to our vaccine target, the longer our borders remain closed, the longer businesses struggle, and the longer Fijians remain without jobs. Now, doing business, sir, I want to ask the Leader of Opposition and the Honorable Gavoka, where are you coming up with these misleading ranking of 110 when we have been in touch and working with the World Bank Group, and Fiji has never been ranked 110. I wish to enlighten them that the WBG has been recognizing the reforms we have undertaken thus far. In fact, they have been working with the ministry on different levels of doing business processes. Since 2017, we've been working on reforms to reduce time and cost of doing business. I've been saying this in this house time and time again, but they don't listen. In 2021 assessment, sir, for the first time, Fiji has been acknowledged for positive reforms in 3 indicators: starting a business, obtaining construction permits, and getting credit. Every parliament sitting, the opposition takes a dig at our ranking from the past. Not once have they bothered, at the very least, to acknowledge the good. That's not healthy debate. So that's plain unconstructive criticism. I ask the opposition to see the changes on the ground. By eliminating this consent issue requirement from the Lands Department or the TLTB for water and electricity and connections or mortgage or charge, pledge or caveat, it removes long wait for developers, sir. I see they'll harp on about TLTB, but they won't say anything about the Lands Department. It's the same process. But the opposition has again created misinformation, and they're inciting Fijians. And it's all wrong, sir. The amendment to the TLTB Act is not taking away any landowners' rights. The amendments will simply make service delivery faster. Everybody in the opposition should listen to Honorable Bulitavu. Maybe they should also listen to Pondroni Ndalo, sir. who's actually said these things out in public. This amendment will not alienate the land from the landowners. Ownership of Itoke land is actually protected. It's enshrined in our Section 28 of our Constitution. It can never be taken away. Can never, ever, ever be taken away from the customary owners. Even if the government uses the land for public purposes and pays compensation, when the land is no longer required for its original purpose, it must be returned to the landowners. This protection was introduced in the 2013 Constitution. Never before was it in any other constitution. Section 5 of the Itoke Lands Trust Act also ensures that Itoke land shall not be alienated by sale, grant, transfer, or exchange except to the state. No one can sell, transfer, rezone, or sublease, amongst others, without the consent of the landowners. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to quote the extract from the budget address, which actually reconfirms that the amendment will not alienate land from landowners. I ask the opposition to listen carefully, sir. Consent is still required for dealings such as sale, such as transfer, such as subleasing, such as assignment, such as subletting, such as building, rezoning, and so forth. However, with these amendments, consent can only be refused where there is a breach of any lease condition or the application is not in accordance with the law. What is so hard to understand? Even the TLTB is telling you the same thing. The budget address and the amendments to the TLTB are public documents. It is readily available for people to read. But the opposition picks and chooses and twists information they think is relevant for their particular cause. The SUDELPA members need to be reminded that during the leadership of Rambuka, sir, the Denra and Momi issue, we've said it time and time again, the landowners permanently lost their land, but they conveniently forget about saying things about that. Need I say more, sir? Opposition needs to stop, sir. They need to stop polluting the minds of Fijians and stop the politics of the old. If you have nothing useful to contribute, don't contribute. Don't start twisting people's minds. It's actually causing mayhem for no reason whatsoever. I see the Honorable Gavoka was so flippant about something that seriously raised by Honorable Rosie Akbar. It's actually quite sad, sir. In terms of transport, Honorable Speaker, sir, transport is a critical cross-cutting sector for the economy, whether land or sea. It's a link to our development. The transport sector has been allocated a budget of over $30 million. This is for the continuation of shipping services to the maritime islands. The domestic vessel operators are supported in sustaining their businesses. Mr. Speaker, sir, the budget provides more than 20 transport-related initiatives across all sectors, and some of these include social welfare assistance, on-bus fare support for the elderly, for the disabled, transport assistance for primary and secondary students, removal of LTA, alteration of records fee, payment of driving license, defensive driving fees for all taxi drivers, bus driver, minibus driver, and carrier drivers who will need renewal in the next financial year, strengthening and powers of LTA against vehicles illegally operating as taxis or minibus, open ranking systems for taxis, and so on. All of these and many other initiatives are assisting those that have been affected the most. Your taxis, minibuses, and carrier operators. Shipping industry has been heavily impacted with reduction in cargo, sir. To ease the burden, the coasting trade has been removed for foreign cargo ships. This allows for faster movement in and out of our ports. Given our geographical dispersion, inter-island sea transportation is essential for our livelihood, for our trade, and for our commerce. Therefore, the continued support for the government shipping franchise of more than $2 million, we keep the maritime islands connected, sir. To provide safe, efficient, reliable, affordable shipping service, the GSS is yearly given a budget for the maintenance and operations of 12 government vessels, sir. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir, we need to achieve the targets set to put us on a better footing for economic recovery and to give back to our citizens the ability to earn a livelihood. In fact, we will achieve much more with the opportunities and new industries emerging from this whole adversity, sir. I wholeheartedly support the 2021-22 national budget and look forward to the new financial year with a reinvigorated look, sir. I urge the opposition members So please don't twist the facts. Please don't try and influence the public by telling lies or not telling the truth and just keeping mum about stuff that they should be honest about. The best policy with this country to move forward and not have racial division is to be honest. To be honest with each other. And let's not be dishonest in this particular house. Now, Levin, thank you very much for allowing me to have the floor. I support the budget, sir.